Um, Usually when you are handed a document to read, you expect an actual document.
Right. Yeah. You expect paragraphs, arguments, a narrative.
Exactly. It's like getting a letter in the mail, right?
Yeah.
You tear open the envelope, pull out the pages, and there's a whole story waiting for you to digest.
You expect a complete thought, like something with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
But imagine you open that envelope and there is absolutely no letter inside.
Oh, wow. Just empty.
Yeah, completely empty. Well, not totally empty. Just a blank piece of paper with a return address written right in the center. And nothing else.
That is deeply frustrating.
It really is. Because suddenly you're just left holding a pointer. You aren't analyzing a message anymore. You have to analyze the mechanism of delivery itself.
Which is a totally different skill set.
Totally. And that actually brings us to today's custom-tailored deep dive. We are taking a look at a highly unusual, honestly, incredibly minimalist source.
Yeah, calling it minimalist is almost an understatement.
Right. Instead of a giant stack of articles or pages of dense research, we have exactly 2 lines of text.
Just 2 lines.
Just 2. The first line is a title. It reads, Excerpts from Echoes from the Red Book link. And the second line is literally just a single web address. It's http://xxlink.com/o/6dkuzal8d7.
And that's it. That is the entirety of our source material.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So how do we extract meaning when we're just handed the envelope?
Well, it forces us to look at the architecture of information rather than the information itself because, in our modern digital ecosystem where we are just constantly bombarded with data, we actually trade these exact kinds of placeholders all the time without a second thought.
We really do. So our mission today is to unpack the literal text provided, deconstruct the technical mechanics of that URL, and then look at the psychological implications of receiving a digital coordinate rather than the underlying knowledge.
It's going to be a fascinating one.
I think so too. So let's start by looking at the specific phrasing of the title, Excerpts from Echoes from the Red Book link.
Yeah, we have to unpack the semantic weight here because it feels incredibly deliberate.
It really does. Let's look at that word echoes. In the physical world, an echo is a reverberation, right? It's a secondary transmission of an original sound that inherently loses fidelity over time and distance.
Yeah, it degrades.
Exactly. If I shout in a canyon, the sound bouncing back to me is distorted by the rock walls it hit along the way. The environment literally changes the information.
And the digital equivalent of that distortion is what media theorists call context collapse.
Context collapse. Wait, break that down for me.
So when an original thought is posted online, it has a specific environment, right? It has an author, a timestamp, a surrounding discussion, a very specific tone.
Like the original canyon you're shouting at.
Exactly. But the moment someone interacts with it, like taking a screenshot, copying a quote, or in this case, generating a routing link, it becomes an echo. It is ripped completely from its native environment.
Wow. And here we aren't even looking at the full echo. The title specifies these are excerpts of echoes.
Right. It's a fragment of a fragment.
So I'm holding this link, and it's supposedly an excerpt of an echo. I feel like I'm playing a digital game of telephone.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. At what point does the original message just completely degrade? If we are 2 or 3 steps removed from the source, the meaning could be entirely inverted by the time it reaches us.
It definitely could. But we can actually trace exactly where this echo is bouncing from by looking at the second part of that title, the phrase Red Book link.
Okay, what does that point to?
Well, in the context of modern social platforms and digital directories, Red Book typically refers to Xiaohongshu. It's a massive social commerce and lifestyle platform, mostly based in China.
Oh, right. It's often referred to in English simply as Little Red Book.
Exactly. And these platforms, they operate as highly contained, closed ecosystems. They are walled gardens.
Meaning they don't play nice with the rest of the internet.
Right. They don't want you consuming their content outside of their app infrastructure. They want you inside the walls. So when information leaves that ecosystem, it is heavily packaged and filtered.
So reading the phrase excerpts from echoes from the Red Book link is practically a structural diagram of how data escapes a walled garden.
It really is. It's a fragment of a reverberation that somehow managed to make it past the platform's walls.
That makes the title feel almost like a warning label, like it's acknowledging right up front that whatever is on the other side of this coordinate has been fundamentally stripped of its original surroundings.
Yes, proceed with caution. The context is gone.
But, knowing that this is an echo is only half the battle. We still have to figure out how this specific sound is traveling. Which brings us to the actual technical coordinate we were given.
Right, the link itself.
http://xhsec.com/o/60kuze all 8D7. Let's put this digital breadcrumb under the microscope.
People click these constantly, but it is not just a random string of text. It operates as a highly engineered mechanism.
Okay, so what's the first component of that mechanism?
It's the protocol. Notice it begins with HTTP rather than HTTPS.
Oh, yeah. I know a lot of people see plain HTTP and immediately think, like, outdated or assume it's some sort of insecure scam link.
Oh, completely. But for a dedicated routing link like this one, there is actually a brilliant engineering reason for skipping the S.
Wait, really? It's intentional.
Absolutely. It is entirely about reducing latency before the redirect. See, when you click an HTTPS link, your browser has to perform an SSL handshake with the server to establish a secure encrypted connection.
Okay, handshake.
Right. And that handshake requires multiple round trips of data between your device and the server. It takes fractions of a second, but at scale, it really adds up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And a link shortening domain like xessaylink.com doesn't actually host the final content. Its only job is to catch your request, log it, and immediately bounce you to the real destination using what's called a 301 redirect.
So by using just HTTP, the server is basically saying, don't bother setting up a secure channel with me, you aren't staying here anyway.
That's the exact mechanism. The browser hits the HTTP endpoint, the server avoids all the computational overhead of encrypting the connection, and then instantly shoves the browser toward the secure HTTPS destination where the actual content lives.
That is incredibly efficient.
It is. But before it shoves you away, it uses the domain --link.com as a tracking funnel.
Ah, so this is where the walled garden concept comes back into play. The platform doesn't just hand you the direct URL to the post. They force you through this specific doorway.
Exactly, because the doorway collects the toll.
The toll, you mean data?
Yes, data.
Yeah.
Even in that fraction of a millisecond before the redirect, the server at xhsec.com captures metadata. It logs the IP address, the time of the click, the user agent, which tells it whether you are on an iPhone or a desktop, and potentially the referral source.
So this centralized routing hub basically allows the platform to maintain really granular analytics on how their echoes are performing in the wild.
Exactly. Even when the content is shared outside their native app, they are still tracking its reverberations.
Fascinating. Okay, so after the domain, we see the /o/.
Right, which functions as a directory path.
It's a sorting mechanism. Like, if the domain is the lobby of a massive corporate building, the /o is the directory telling the server's internal logic to look at a specific database or function.
Right. Maybe the O stands for outbound or open, or it just points to a specific server cluster.
I got it. But then we arrive at the actual payload, that long string, 60K 8D7.
This is the core of it. This is a base 62 encoded string. And understanding how this string functions is honestly crucial to understanding how modern information is traded.
I really want to focus on this because, we use analogies for this all the time that don't quite fit. People call it a digital fingerprint or a license plate.
Yeah, those are common.
But functionally, it behaves much more like a coat check ticket.
Oh, that's a really good way to think about it.
Right. If I go to a museum and hand the attendant my winter coat, they hand me back a little piece of cardboard with the number 42 on it. The number 42 doesn't look like my coat. It doesn't contain any fibers of my coat.
No, not at all.
It is purely an arbitrary pointer that only has value because the attendant has a matching system behind the desk.
The coat check analogy is functionally perfect. That string, 60K 8D7, contains absolutely no semantic data about the underlying content. It doesn't tell you the author, the topic, the file size, nothing.
It's just a database key.
Exactly. And the reason it uses base 62 is purely a matter of mathematical efficiency. Base 62 uses all the lowercase letters, all the uppercase letters, and the numbers 0 through 9.
Okay, so it's 26 lowercase, 26 uppercase, plus 10 numbers. Yeah, 62.
Right. That gives you 62 possible characters for every single slot in that string.
Which kind of begs the question, why 11 characters? If it's just a coat check ticket, why not just use 5 characters and keep the link even shorter?
Well, it comes down to scale and avoiding what we call database collisions.
Collisions?
Yeah.
Meaning generating the same ticket twice.
Exactly. If you only use 5 characters in base 62, you max out at around 916 million unique combinations.
Which sounds like a lot.
It does, but for a massive social platform generating millions of shared links every single day, you would burn through those combinations in a matter of months.
Oh, well. Yeah, I guess you would.
So by expanding the string to 11 characters, the number of possible unique combinations jumps to roughly 52 quintillion.
52 quintillion. That is... I can't even wrap my head around that number.
It's massive. They have enough coat check tickets to last until the sun brings out.
Literally.
And more importantly, having 52 quintillion possibilities means the system can generate these strings randomly on the fly without constantly checking a centralized master list to see if the string has already been used.
Because the mathematical probability of randomly generating the exact same 11-character string twice is practically zero.
Exactly. It prevents bottlenecking the system. But... this is the catch. This incredible engineering efficiency introduces a massive philosophical vulnerability.
Right, because it requires an active translation mechanism.
Yes.
Like going back to the museum analogy, if I hold my coat check ticket with the number 42 on it, but the museum burns down,
you're not getting your coat back.
The ticket is mathematically useless. I can't extract a coat from the number 42. So by sharing this base 62 string instead of the actual excerpt, the knowledge is totally obscured until the server resolves it.
It transforms the sharing of information from an act of direct communication into an act of complete dependency on a centralized database.
That is so true. You are handing someone a locked box and asking them to trust the infrastructure of exyslink.com to open it.
And if that centralized database goes offline, or if the company goes bankrupt, or even if the platform simply decides to purge older routing tables to save server space, that connection is severed. The translation key is just gone.
Which actually brings us to the most glaring aspect of the source material you provided today. The actual excerpts are missing.
Yeah, they really are.
We've spent all this time analyzing the mechanics of the envelope and the mathematical brilliance of the return address. But the letter isn't here. You didn't give us the text of the post. You gave us the pointer.
And I think this reveals something profound about how we manage information overload today.
I agree. What is happening in our brains when we do this?
It's a behavioral phenomenon known as cognitive offloading.
Cognitive offloading.
Right. In an environment where we are exposed to vastly more information than the human brain could ever hope to process, we have unconsciously adapted. We no longer attempt to store the knowledge itself. We store the coordinate to the knowledge. We rely on transactive memory systems.
Transactive memory, meaning like we treat the internet as an external hard drive for our brains?
Pretty much. Historically, humans have always used transactive memory, but we used it with each other.
What do you mean?
Like, you might not know how to fix a car engine, but you know your neighbor does. Your brain doesn't store the mechanical knowledge, it stores the location of the knowledge. The neighbor.
Oh, I see. So we have simply scaled that biological quirk to the digital realm.
Exactly. We message each other URLs, we hoard bookmarks, we keep 50 browser tabs open. We are basically building massive personal databases of pointers.
We really do. Think about how many saved links you have on your phone right now. You save an article or a video or a read book link, and the moment you hit save, you get this little dopamine hit.
Oh, absolutely.
You feel this sense of intellectual completion, almost as if you actually read the piece.
But you didn't. That dopamine hit is the trap of the placeholder economy.
The placeholder economy, I like that phrase.
We trick ourselves into feeling well-informed because we have acquired the coordinate. But holding the Dewey Decimal Card is not the same thing as reading the book.
Not at all.
And there is a critical distinction between a physical library and the digital ecosystem. The physical library is a public good, built to preserve the book itself. The digital ecosystem, relying on things like our base 62 string and that sync routing hub, is a private commercial infrastructure.
Designed to track your movement.
Exactly. It's designed to track, not necessarily to preserve.
So our heavy reliance on trading these links is essentially outsourcing our memory to private data centers. We hold on to 60KUZ all 8D7, and we feel secure, but we are entirely at the mercy of the platform, keeping that specific database row intact.
That's exactly right.
So if we want to actually learn, if we want to avoid just trading the illusion of knowledge, we have to recognize the link for what it is. It's a door. And a door has absolutely no value if you just stand in front of it holding the handle.
You have to follow the coordinate. The danger of the minimalist source, the danger of the digital pointer, is that it encourages passive collection rather than active engagement.
Yeah.
The architecture of these links, the unencrypted protocols, the database routing, I mean, they are fascinating logistical tools. They make the modern web possible, but they are not the space itself. True knowledge requires venturing past the index card, executing the request, and engaging with the original substance before the context collapses entirely.
Let's bring all of these threads together, because this has been a massive journey pulled from literally just 2 lines of text.
It really has.
We started with this incredibly minimalist artifact, a title and a single URL. We looked at how the phrase excerpts of echoes perfectly describe the context collapse of digital media, especially when information is exported from closed, walled garden platforms like Xiaohongshu.
And then we examined the physical mechanics of the URL. We explored how the unencrypted HTTP protocol isn't a mistake, but a deliberate engineering choice to eliminate latency during a 301 redirect.
Right, and we looked at how the routing domain acts as a toll booth, capturing user metadata before passing them along. And then we broke down the math of that base 62 string, realizing it's basically a digital code check ticket capable of 52 quintillion combinations.
Which provides a highly efficient but incredibly fragile mapping system.
Yes, fragile. And finally, we zoomed out to look at the psychology behind why we share links like this in the first place. We explored cognitive offloading and how, in our fight against information overload, we've started hoarding digital pointers instead of actual knowledge.
We rely on centralized servers to act as our transactive memory.
The ultimate takeaway here is that an organized collection of coordinates is not a substitute for comprehension. The infrastructure is brilliant, sure, but it is temporary. If you want the knowledge, you cannot just collect the echoes. You have to trace the sound back to the source.
It's all about doing the work to walk through the door, not just collecting a ring full of keys.
I love that. But I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. It builds on this idea of transactive memory and the inherent fragility of the web. We mentioned what happens if the centralized database goes offline, a phenomenon known as link rot.
It happens all the time.
Right. The average lifespan of a web page is startlingly short. Servers get wiped, startups fail, platforms restructure their routing protocols.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, if xlink.com suffers a catastrophic failure tomorrow and the translation key for this coordinate is permanently deleted, what happens to the echo?
That's a great question.
When the pointer breaks, the information on the other side doesn't necessarily disappear, but your path to it vanishes. Does the mere fact that you recorded this exact coordinate, the literal string of 6DK USAL 8D7, hold its own unique historical value? It becomes the tombstone for a piece of data. Years from now, when the map is completely faded away, does the memory of where the X used to be become a cultural artifact in its own right? Think about it. Until next time, keep